We don't sell our land. A land is a part of who we are, because that's where we came from. A lot of your native creation stories has us coming from the earth, or we were put on solid soil.
Can you share an origin story?
Oh my. I think the one that gets to me is, some of the Navajos, they came from up. We have said we've always been here. That's how the four tribes, Wichita-related tribes, we know that we've always been here. We've always been to the land. And to see the architecture that, quote, primitive people did. And I'm biased here on the statement I'm going to make. I have always seen Indian people as very knowledgeable about their natural surroundings. Even as we look at Itzanova, it's sitting up on up, and you can see the Walnut River, and you can see all around. You go down to the confluence of the Big and Little Arkansas River, and you can, in the springtime, or maybe when we've had more than abundant rains or snows, when the Arkansas, both the Big and the Little Arkansas River flow. And to know that at one time those were big rivers, even the Little was big. It's deeper than the Big Arkansas, but to know that in time past, as the snows melted in the Rockies, it came down through, I don't know, how many counties from the border, from Kansas. And it flows. And when these two come together, they make something bigger. And I think, to me, that's how I see the land, that you can take the land, use it, and it makes it something bigger. Technically, I'm not part of the Wichita proper.
Okay.
I'm Kichi. Not Kichi, but Kichi.
And that's spelled?
Keechi.
Okay.
And every once in a while, some of us will say Kichis. We'll throw an S sound in there. It's even on my birth certificate that I'm Kichis. We are part of Wichita-affiliated tribes, and we have basically, that's it. I have known I've been Indian, shall we say, since I've been small child. I knew I was different because I looked in the mirror and I didn't look like my classmates or playmates. They were all lighter than I was. And so we just, and then when we got to Oklahoma, or when I went to Oklahoma to visit or whatever, people looked like me. That's just the way I grew up knowing, and it, based upon we can say Indian and no one really kind of frowns at us because we know who we are, for the most part. still here. Uh, I had an incident many, many decades ago on a city bus where a woman told me to get off the bus because all Wichita Indians were dead. And the bus driver, who happened to be a black man, he pulled up to the curb and he said, "Get off my bus." Not to me, but to her. He said, "I've known this woman, I've seen her for many years, and she's very much alive. And so was her children and her grandchildren and stuff." But it's just amazing what we accomplish, and we're taught to do it kind of quietly. I grew up in Peck, Kansas and Anadarko, Oklahoma. I went to it was kind of a one-room schoolhouse, but it was also 2 rooms, upper class and primary. I graduated from Peck grade school from the 8th grade. Like I said, I had 2 aunts, and among Wichita, and our aunts taught us how to be, particularly girls. We had to be prim and proper ladies because they didn't want any hint of scandal. I had a distinction. I was tribal princess when I was 15. Usually you have to be 16, but we're such a small group of people that, and I guess because I was still quote virginal or unspoiled, whatever you want to call it, that they decided that I would do. When I was growing up, we learned all the improper words. The ones you didn't say in front of your parents or your aunties or your uncles. And so, but I just knew that I had always been considered Wichita, even though I knew that we were Keechis. I came to Wichita December 25th, 1963.
Why?
My husband had got a job with Boeing, and they moved us from Phillipsburg, Kansas, extreme northwest Kansas, not extreme, but far northwest Kansas, where if you get on the grain elevator in Phillipsburg, you can see Nebraska. I became a part of what was a storefront called Mid-America All Indian Center. I watched it grow from an idea of a number of us to fruition in 1976 when it opened. And I've watched the changes happen. And as Indian people, when we go into an urban area, a lot of it's foreign to us because we're used to small towns or living out in the country. And a lot of us, we live out in the country. But coming here to Wichita, it was like, wow. I've had more opportunities here in Wichita, Kansas than I know that I would have had in Oklahoma. Any education they give us, particularly as women now, whatever we learn, they can't ever take that from us. Our earliest recorded written stuff was back in the 1700s and stuff. And Wichita and the other 3 affiliated tribes, we were traders. And we have things that we have found like in Etzanoa and other places that came from out west or north of Kansas. sits on a small hill in a cow pasture in Rice County. And the serpent, as it's been carved out of the soil, in the serpent's body and stuff, it's prairie grass, but it's short. And it's short in the integumental portion. And then the taller prairie grasses are around it. And for me, when you're standing up there on the hill, and there was myself, our tribal chairperson, female, yay. And you look out and you know that ancestors that came before us had been there too. And we all felt some sort of presence, or we thought there was a presence there, that those who went before us. And a lot of tribes, as you know, we think 7 generations behind us, and the 7 generations to come. And that's just us. But standing there on a small hill in a cow pasture in south central Kansas, you realize that Native people have been here for eons. For me, the impact was I looked out and there was just, not necessarily unspoiled prairie, but there was no houses, there was a pond and cattle and friends. Dr. Blakesley from WSU and his wife, and like I said, our tribal chairman, our cultural person, our tribal chair. We have tribal chair, cultural. He has a fancy title. But I knew these people. Some of them, Gary and I are close to the same age as our cultural person. And our tribal chairwoman, I've known her since she's been a little girl. Someone had been there before I had. And it's like, whoever carved it, they put that, I think they're for a reminder that we're alive, well, and to be functioning. But I shed a few tears that day because it impacts you that you're a part of something bigger. Whatever Native people or original inhabitants, whatever you want to call us, we were intelligent enough to know how to, build sturdy structures, how to do the land, how to, coax fruits, vegetables, primarily. Wichita and Field Lady tribes, they're considered agricultural tribes. And the one thing I like about the 4 tribes, particularly the Wichita and the Kichis, is that we're female. We have, our leadership is female. And we don't see that as anything unusual. We knew that women were a big deal. We just did. My aunts taught me to sit up straight. It's a little hard sometimes. And then continue on. I have children, I have grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren. And I have to share who I am, where I came from with them. That there is something going to be happening in the future. An egg symbolizes potential birth, potential growth. It's the hope that there's something coming, whatever that something may be. There's something coming. To me, it's a very special place
Why?
because I know that people came before me, were there. They set up places to live, if you want to call them villages or communities, whatever. They lived there. They were permanent. They're not the four tribes are not nomadic tribes. Once they find a place that's near water and appears to grow, food crops, that's where they'll stay for a long time. It looks empty, but yet it's not. Because even when the European settlers started coming over, you couldn't always tell that they had a homestead or whatever. But they were there, and it to some people looked bleak, but yet the natives that came before and the Europeans that came, they carved a place for themselves, their descendants. This is us. I think it has to do just with the geography, the lay of the land, that you knew that there was fertile soil there. You could establish there was water nearby, there were trees, there were things growing. And if you look at a garden now, you can tell that it's going to grow something. And I think when we were standing up on that hill standing adjacent to the Serpent, it was like you could see into the future, and if you turn slightly this way, you could see into the past.